Hi everyone, this is podcast 8 and I'm committed to do 52 to see how it works out. In any case, today the podcast will be about me as a renter, offering rooms for rent primarily to students, and the some of the crazy calls that I get. So I've made up a list so I don't forget them. There's so many, but I'll try to share some of the experiences I've had with people calling looking for rooms. So without going into great detail, I will let you know that I've been renting rooms for 28 years down in the States, where I was teaching as a university professor, and for the last couple of years here in Peterborough. And actually, the renting situation is completely different from the States, from up here, as compared to up here. But that's life, right? In any case, so again, to be succinct, my rooms are listed in quite a bit of detail, and by price and to what is offered in that price. And while I do say my preference is for students, recent grads, or young people just starting out in their careers, I don't like to say a specific age. Like, I don't like to say, people under 30 or anything like that. I kind of leave it a little bit open, but I think if someone actually read the post, I think they would understand that I'm looking to rent to a younger crowd. And so I say I've created quite a complicated list of calls over the last 2 years, and I'm going to share some with you. And I won't mention anybody's names or anything, even though I actually do know a number of the names. So let's start about the first one. I get a number of calls from older people, shall we say senior citizens. And the oldest one that I'm aware of is 89. And so I always start out, when we speak on the phone, I say, well, are you a student? And so this one lady said to me, yes, I am. And you can tell an older person when they speak. In any case, I knew she was older. And I don't like to ask age, but often they will tell you what their age is. So she said, oh, yes, I'm a student. And I said, what university or college are you studying at? And she said, oh, I'm at the University of Life. Well, I've heard this one before, so I kind of laughed to myself, but I have to be very polite and respectful. So I say, well, where is this institution located? And she says, well, I just look out the window, and that's the University of Life. So I said, okay, that's great. And are you studying anything in particular? Oh, no, I just watch life. And so I said, well, if you were to move in here with a number of other students, mostly students with a master's and PhDs, I said, what will you do? What will you be studying? Oh, I will sit and watch your TV all day and bake and cook all day long and just sit on the sofa enjoying life. And I said, well, that's wonderful. And so again, as a potential landlord, you have to be polite and respectful. I mean, people are crazy, and possibly I'm crazy too, but it is really interesting. And I want to back up just something I should have included at the very beginning. I'm assuming that everyone listening to this podcast, of which I think there's 5 people, nobody listens, but in any case, if you have read any books from Ernest Hemingway, I have never come across someone who's so verbose in all my life. I mean, this fine gentleman who's not with us, he can talk about a bullfight or drinking a rum drink, and he can write an entire book on it. And I'm serious, he can. I mean, look up Ernest Hemingway and read one or two of his books. That he can write a million words on a drink. In any case, I can't do that. But in any case, so I'm going to try to add a few extra details to some of these interesting things, interesting callers. So that's one lady who's called. I get I receive calls and inquiries first, and then it turns into a call. And I've had a number of them from ladies and gentlemen from out west, like Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia. And so I always inquire and start out the conversation, are you a student? And I've had a number of people from out west say, oh, no, I'm in my 30s, 40s, 50s. And I say, okay, well, you did read the post? Oh, yes. Well, quite candidly, nobody reads the entire advertisement or post. They don't. All they stop at the price. That's the end of it. They don't read anything else. So I asked them, okay, you're not a student. Oh, no. Are you employed? No. Well, how are you going to pay your rent? Do you have assets or something like that? Oh, no, I have nothing. But we'll worry about rental payment once I move in. And of course, I can't say anything, too harsh on the phone. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm worried about rental income now. Because, what if I get this person moves in and they can't pay the rent? Then I'm into a bit of a quandary in a situation. I mean, what do? I don't want to get the police involved. I don't want to do any of that. I'm a nice person. Okay, well, I truly believe at my age, which is coming up to 80, I believe everybody has good intent, and I believe everybody is a good person at heart. And I'm using everybody a lot. And I also believe everybody has the best of intention, but most of us make mistakes. And it's sometimes hard to step back after you make a mistake. So when I get people calling and they've got no source of income, no job prospects, and it's difficult to proceed further. And from my position, I just can't hang up or, say go jump in the ocean. I can't do that. I have to kind of say, which is usually my escape. I say, well, I'm speaking with some other students before you, and I have to deal with them first, and I'll get back to you afterwards, which is in part the truth. But in any case, that's another example of what happens out west. Oh, well, east too, but I'm just saying a couple of these calls from out west come to mind. Another thing that's really interesting is if you are a landlord or thinking of renting rooms, or even if you're just a person who studies humanity, when you get people speaking, they reveal a lot of information, which is wonderful because you don't have to ask, they reveal it. So I have people calling and they say, well, I'm even if they're from Ontario, it doesn't matter the location. They say, I'm looking for a room. And I say, okay, that's great. You want a private or a shared room? And on occasion, they'll say, well, I want a shared room. And I say, okay. And is this something, do you have a friend? Oh, no, I expect you to have a person there already. Well, for my student days, it doesn't work. If you're going to commit to a shared room, you need to go into that environment with someone you know and trust. And so my response is, as you probably already know, is I can't help you with a single bed in a shared room, but if you find a friend that you're comfortable with, of course, then we need to have a conversation, and if the conversation goes well, then you can certainly come and look at things and speak with me and so forth. But some of the things they say is when they call, well, I'm looking to make a new start in life. Ooh, well, that's interesting because it's very complicated. I mean, they're making a new start in life because something happened, or they're making you start in life. So I generally ask, being polite and respectful, what's this new start from? Are you just like relocating? They say, oh no, I've been incarcerated and I'm out. I'm on probation, and I'm just looking to get away from wherever they were, and start fresh. No one knows them, that sort of thing. Well, that's interesting. I get other people saying, no, I'm starting fresh because I lost my job and I need to look for a new career. And so I politely ask, well, why did you lose your job? What happened? Was it just a company cutting jobs? And they say, oh no, I was caught for misconduct or something like that. Well, that doesn't sound awfully promising. And I get this sort of inquiry. So let me have a look here. So I spoke about the inquiries from a lot of people, including students, regardless of the age. So, part of the conversation is, how are you going to pay for your rent? I'll give you an example. 2 or 3 days ago, I was called by a grandmother. They were self-identifying. A grandmother who was calling on behalf of her granddaughter. And she said the granddaughter was 18, graduating from a high school in Peterborough, and which is fine. And I asked why the young lady wasn't calling me. Oh, well, she's in school. And I said, well, she's the one potentially going to be renting, so I need to speak with her. And she said, oh, no, you can speak with me. I have all the answers. So I said, okay, well, this young lady, how is she going to pay for her rent? And she said, well, that's a good question. I said, well, are you sponsoring her or her parents? Oh, no, she's distanced from the parents. They don't get along, and she doesn't speak to them, so there's no support there. And I said, well, are you supporting her? No. And I said, well, how's she going to pay her rent? Well, she's applied to a number of positions in Peterborough, and I said, well, applying to positions in Peterborough is, it's a start, but that's no guarantee that she's going to acquire any of these positions. So how is she going to pay her rent? Well, she said, I don't know that. And I said, well, would you like to have her call me? And she said, I don't know, because I never thought about the rent part. And I'm thinking to myself, here a grandmother, I don't know her age, but I'm going to make an assumption that she's in her 60s, if not older. Wouldn't you think a grandmother would think about the rent, the cost? Anyway, I haven't heard a peep back from the young lady, nor the grandmother. So let's continue. I get other calls from students and young adults, and I say, let's come up with some hypothetical number. I say, okay, the rent's $700 a month, and I expect first and last month's rent. And they say, how much is that? And I say, well, it's 700 times 2. And their answer is, I can't do that. And I'm thinking to myself, you can't do it, why? And I asked them, again, always being polite and respectful. I said, well, why can't you multiply, why can't you come up with a total amount that's due if you were to move in? The $700 is the rent per month, and you need your first and last. They can't do it. They can't multiply 2 times 700. And I get adults calling the same thing. They can't do it. So I don't know. I don't know what the educational system's coming to. And I'm not making any criticism of the educational system. It just seems strange that, every single landlord, every place they apply to is going to ask, I assume they're going to ask for first and last month's rent. So that's, the rent times 2. Anyway, $1,400 seems to be a magic number, or $1,200 if it's 6. They can't do it. They can't do basic multiplication. It just drives me nuts. And my home doesn't have, I hope this is okay to say, I did speak with my lawyer and ask if it was okay, and he said it is. But my home doesn't have wheelchair access or handicap access. It's just a normal, standard, middle-class home. And I get people calling, and I often ask, if not always ask, did you read the post? And they say yes. And I ask, they say, well, I'm handicapped and I need help and I need a special washroom and so forth and so forth. And I put in my post that I don't have these things, which tells me nobody reads. That they see the price, I'll call. That's the end of it. They don't read. In any case, it's tough. It's tough trying to meet the demand and the inquiries when you want to be helpful and polite and respectful. It's tough. It's difficult. In any case, let me go on. I've got about 12 pages of notes, and I'm not going to do this in the 1 hour that I want to get through it. I make it clear that I don't want people who smoke, use drugs, vape, or have pets. And I make it's clear in the posting. And you already know where I'm going with this one. So in any case, I speak to people, and they sound really great. They sound perfect. And at the end, just because I have to ask, I say, do you smoke? Oh, no. And I said, okay, that's good. That's a major hurdle. But they say, I vape. So I shake my head and think, what's the difference? And they say, well, there's a huge difference. And I say, oh, well, okay, well. In any case, I had to change my initial post from just no smoking, no drugs, no pets. And I have to now include no vaping, because vaping apparently is not smoking. And then I get people, students, young people starting their first career. I get them calling and I ask, do you have a pet? No. Well, at the end of the conversation, I make it clear, polite but clear, that if there's any breach, there will be a lease, and if there's any breach of no smoking, no vaping, no pets, no drugs, that will cause problem. And they say, well, I have guinea pigs, or I have hamsters, or I have a kitty cat. Some of them say I have a puppy. And I say, aren't they pets? Oh, no, they're members of my family. So I'm not saying everyone. I'm saying a lot of people want to extend the definition of pets and smoking and vaping and drugs. It's you have to ask the questions. And at the end, I almost have to say, well, there will be a lease, and there will be terms and conditions in the lease. And if you violate these conditions, that you will be asked to move on. At that time, they usually come out and tell you what they're thinking. I often get the thing, well, I smoke, but I won't smoke in the house. Well, I'm assuming the majority of people know people who smoke. They say they won't smoke in the house, and they usually don't. But in the winter, they open a window and blow smoke out the window, or they get lazy and they smoke in bed or whatever. It's not easy leasing or renting. It's not easy. People don't want to abide by the rules. I had, let me have a look here. I have had people calling, primarily young women, and they say, well, I'd like to rent or lease, whatever, and they sound great, really nice people, and they meet the requirements. And then they say, oh, well, my boyfriend's working, he'd like to come and spend 4 days a week there. And so I say, well, then you're looking for a room for 2 people, or 2 rooms for 2 people. Oh, no. If I'm going to rent for some hypothetical number, say $600 a month, then he should be allowed to stay there 3 or 4 or 5 days a week with no extra fee. And I said, well, potentially he's going to be showering. You're going to be doing his laundry. You're going to be using the kitchen. Do you not think that puts additional pressure on all the facilities? Oh, no. Nope. So this is the sort of thing I get. And it's hard to be candid because they get upset. I had one girl, one young lady want to move in. Again, sounded great, met all the requirements, and she said, well, I want to have my boyfriend spend weekends. He'll be there Friday till Monday morning. And so I said, well, right at the moment, which has changed, but right at the moment, the students in the house didn't want guys in the house. So I said to her, this is only a female house right now. And I said, in the future, that may change. But today, the students that are there don't want guys in the house. And she said, well, you're against relationships. And she got kind of, I guess it's okay to say, kind of pissy about it. She cursed me out and said, I'm not against relationships. It's just, there's 3 other students there right now, and that's what they want. And I'm not going to jeopardize their position to allow your boyfriend there for 3 days. She got pretty ugly about it. In any case, let me tell you about the another one. And this has happened 3 times, and this is a great one. You'll love it. So I always ask, because these rooms are fully furnished. I'm exaggerating. I don't know the size of gigantic palatial homes, for people along the lines of Elon Musk or Bill Gates. I don't know that, but I'm sure that their homes are not, 2,500 or 3,000 square feet. Maybe they are, but I'm assuming that with their assets, they can have homes that are substantially larger. In any case, my rooms are fully furnished. The house is furnished. I don't have very much storage space. And depending on who's in the house, I don't have any storage space. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. In any case, so I make it clear. One of the questions I ask, if the conversation goes well, and then they come to the house to view things, we sign a preliminary lease. The detailed lease materializes after they put their first and last month's rent down, and start, preparing to move in. I always ask how much, I use a bad word, stuff. How much stuff do you have? And so I usually get the answer, I got a couple bags and a couple suitcases and a couple of boxes. That's it. And I said, okay, that's fine, as long as you understand. They've seen the rooms. There's not, the rooms aren't 10,000 square feet each room. They're standard middle class size bedroom, and they're furnished. So I had this one girl come in. She had 2 of these extended cab taxis come in full, absolutely full. And I said to her, oh, what happened to the couple of suitcases? Well, I said, if you were to move all of these things in out of these 2 extended cab taxis, you wouldn't have a place to sleep. Well, she says, it's my room. People aren't honest, and I don't know why this is. I'm going to make an assumption, which I could be totally wrong, is they lie because they've accumulated a lot of things, and they have been been turned away. So they find it easier just to say they don't have very much. Well, that never works. It just doesn't work. So what's my next thing I want to bring up? Oh yes, I've had a couple of students. I don't think the location is overly important, but from Ottawa, and it probably could be anywhere. But the students tell me that they're looking for a room, and they're changing over from University of Ottawa to Trent University. Great, super. So I ask, which I always do for every inquiry, why are you leaving your current place, like where you're staying now? And I've had 2 people call me from the Ottawa area and say, this is their words, not mine. They say their food stinks. And I say, well, okay, why is that? And they say, well, I don't know, but they've been removed or asked to leave, or whatever the right term is, to leave where they were living because their food stinks. That's their English, not mine. And I say to them, well, if you've been asked to leave 2 other places because of your cooking routine, then I'm going to jump to a conclusion that unless things change, you're going to be in the same position here. Oh, well, so I make the comment, potentially you'd be better if your cuisine is strange, perhaps to rent a basement or a condo or an apartment or something. In any case, strange, really strange comments come through. I've had other people call and they say that they can't get along with the other roommates. Well, that's kind of a red flag. How am I supposed to react to that? I guess my thought could be, have you understand that if you're living with other people, then you've got to be accommodating. You've got to accept that people are people. They're all different. But in any case, some students call and say that, well, I don't get along well with other people. Well, that doesn't work. I had one girl call from a college, and because these are shared washrooms and shared kitchens, and I make that clear as well right at the beginning of the conversation. So I say, what are you cooking? What are your kitchen habits? Oh, well, I'm taking a culinary course at the college, so I cook 24/7. And I do catering on the weekends and at night. So my question is to them, if you're using the kitchen assets this extensive, then how are other students living there going to use the facilities? Because everything's shared. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. And I said, well, anyway, they don't understand shared. It makes no sense to me. I feel like shooting myself. I mean, it's that crazy. But this is constant. It goes on and on and on. Okay, I mentioned some of the things. Let me look at another page. Oh yeah, you're gonna love this one. This one's crazy. I got a call from a dad. The father was somewhere down in the Boston area, Connecticut, and he called me looking to rent. It was in the summer of 2025, the early summer, wanting his two daughters were going to Trent or Fleming. I'm not sure which. I can't remember that. But in any case, they were out of country at the time, and he said, I like the price, I like the rooms, and I'd like to send you a deposit for the girls coming in for the September 1st start of the academic year. And I said, as I do to everyone, I don't rent to mums. Of course, I say it nicely. I don't rent to mums and dads. I'm renting to the students, so I have to speak to them. I have to let them know what's going on, and I have to converse with them. And I need to meet them, and they need to meet me. And the father says, well, they won't be in until 2 days, like August the 30th. And I said, well, if I have rooms available, I potentially will meet them and potentially will rent to them, but I can't guarantee the rooms will be here. I think he called me in March or April. So he said, I'll send you 100,000 US. I'm thinking to myself, this is real, by the way. I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? I mean, what person in their right mind would send me or anybody 100,000 US to hold 2 rooms for his daughters who were in another country, actually over halfway around the world? I mean, something's going on. It makes no sense. It just doesn't. I don't know if it's money laundering. I don't know if he doesn't understand the value of the dollar. I don't know what it is. But I sometimes get this. I mean, something's wrong. I can't participate in any of that nonsense. I can't do it. It's goofy. Okay. Mention and this another good one. I usually mention in the conversation before we get to a meeting in person that I'm going to do background credit checks and background police checks, which is easy to do as part of these rooming sites. So it's easy to do. It's not a big deal. It costs a few dollars. And you'd be surprised the number of students that either hang up when you say you're going to do credit checks or background police checks. they just hang up. Or they come up with an interesting excuse. Well, I've got another call coming in, or I'm looking at other places as well, so I'll get back to you. So I think you understand my point. The home itself, got one single bedroom, no pets. I've got about 12 pages of notes. I mentioned the guinea pigs and the pets. They're not pets, they're members of family. I get people, a lot of this probably is just common sense. A lot of inquiries, let's be hypothetical. I don't want to be too pragmatic. Say the rooms are rented from $450 shared, which would be $900 for a room, 2 people in one room, up to $800 for a single private room. I get people calling and they don't understand shared. They say, well, you've got a private room for $450 or $475. I said, it says shared. Well, it's not very clear what you mean. So I don't know, it's really difficult. I get a lot of people calling, well, a percentage of people calling, and their budget is $400 or $500, and the rooms are substantially more. And I say, well, you understand that doesn't cover the rent. And they say, oh yeah, well, I'm just calling to see. So, okay. Another point I was going to bring up. Oh yeah, I had a mom and dad with a daughter. I have had a number of parents come with their daughters and sons and meet me and look at the house and so forth. So I had one mom and dad, and they were great. I wish I could have rented the mom and dad. They were that super. Great people. In any case, the dad says, we'll take it. So the daughter was off looking at the house, or looking at the rooms, and I said to the father, you know, I'd love to rent, you know, sarcasm. I said to the mom and dad who were standing there, I said, I'd love to rent to you guys, but your daughter's never expressed any interest. I said, it's not you who's renting, it's her. And they said, oh, well, you're right. And the daughter, they never did rent, but the daughter never expressed any interest. Anyway, let me tell you about another one. I had a mom call me and tell me that she was looking for a room, her daughter going to Trent, and that she was wanting to come up the next day with her husband and daughter and look at a room. I said, that's fine. I can work that into my schedule. So she made it very clear the husband was coming. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I guess that's kind of an intimidation thing that, anyway, I don't care who comes. So in any case, they came in the next day with the mom and the daughter. And I said, well, where's the husband? You told me he was coming. Oh, well, he got a number of bee stings last night, and his face swelled up and he couldn't come. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, right. In any case, so then the mom comes in and we're going through the house, and I said to the daughter, you know, you're welcome to sit on the bed and see if they're comfortable enough. The mom goes crazy. She jumps in the bed like it's a trampoline. I can't figure out who's renting the room. The daughter stood there just stunned. Didn't say anything. The mom's jumping on the bed and, you know, flops on the bed like, I'm just astounded. Like a 50-year-old mom, and she's acting like she's never been to college, university, or in residence. Maybe she hasn't. But she's sitting there jumping on the beds like it's playtime. And the daughter's just standing there, not a word. And then her comment is, oh, I like everything, but I don't like the drapes. Can we change the drapes to something? And this is her words. Can we change the drapes to something more girly? And I said, no, it's a room. It's an off-campus room, and the room's been set up. Everything's new. No, you can't change the drapes for something more girly. And then she got kind of pissy, as the word I've used. I hope that's not going to cause me trouble with YouTube. But in any case, I never heard anything back from her. My preference is to rent from, let me just use a standard academic year, from September until the 1st of May. And my preference would be, if a student is in first year, to rent for 4 years consecutively. I mean, if things work out well and they're happy living there, then let them rent for the whole duration. Moving's HELL. It's not comfortable moving to a new residence, meeting new people, and so forth. In any case, I make it clear I don't rent for less than 8 months. So I get all these calls from parents. Oh, my daughter's wants to rent for 4 months. And it's difficult to deal with all the different inquiries. I mean, it's not unexpected, it's just difficult because nobody reads the gall darn post. And it says 8 months is highly preferred. In any case, and then when you don't, they get kind of a little tiny bit upset. And this next one is interesting. I had a girl apply from Qatar. And again, I think this is okay. My lawyer says it's all right. And of course, or Qatar. The climate over there is, typically much, much warmer than is here. And they don't have our minus 40 degrees C temperatures as we do in Canada on occasion. And so, again, as I stated earlier, one of the questions I ask is, why are you leaving where you're living now? And she said, and the students say to me, or this student said to me, well, I'm not comfortable with the temperature they had it at. I said, well, what does that mean? She said, well, they keep the nighttime temperature at 17 or 18 and the day at 21, 22. Well, she said, I like it at 32, 35. And I said, I guess, if you're accustomed to that, then that's great. But, unless you have your own apartment with your own thermostat, you've got to be considerate of other people too. And 30, 35 degree temperatures all the time, it's in the summer it's uncomfortable. In the winter it's going to cost a fortune. In any case, of course, she got upset with me. Everyone's upset with me because I couldn't accommodate her temperature thing. And I said, there's 3 other master's PhD students here. They're not going to work on that. They're going to leave. And I said, you're going to put me into bankruptcy keeping the thermostat at 35 all year long. In any case, she was upset. I had another girl from, I'll just say overseas. And I have a nice, succinct, it's not micro detail lease agreement. I'm not looking to have 10 lawyers stand beside me and, dot every I and everything. I'm not like that. I mean, come on, a little bit of common sense. In any case, her dad wanted a copy, which was fine. We did a live video chat. The daughter was there and sent the dad pictures of everything, and he wanted to see the contract so he could review it, and he didn't like it. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. Then you have your lawyer, or you have a lawyer here in Canada drop a contract or lease contract, and if I like it, I'll sign it. Well, he didn't like that, and I said, you're paying for the lawyer, and I'm not. And he said, well, you should pay for the lawyer. Anyway, so these are some of the things you get into. Nobody's happy. Had another lady, I don't think she's very old, probably late 20s, and again, really, really nice person. She said she'd like to rent a private room. I said, yep, sounds great. I think we should potentially have you come over for a visit. And she said, well, I just want to be clear. I have 3 children, and they're going to be staying and visiting every weekend. There's always a catch. There's always a little bit more. Let me look at my notes here and see what else I've missed. Had another girl call from, doesn't matter, Mississauga. And I think the key to renting is to have communication, because people tell you a lot, and whether they mean to or don't mean to, they do. And if you listen closely, you really get a sense of what's going on. So I had a girl calling from out Mississauga, Oakville, Hamilton, out that way, and so we're chatting, and I asked a few questions. She said, "Well, I said, I said, are you okay to pay your rent?" And because she said that her mother was struggling, and the mother was paying the rent for her, and I said, "Well, are you okay? Is this going to be a problem?" And she said, "Well, that's not really the problem, but it isn't." But she said, "I got a brother who's, being chased by the police, and he might want to hide out at the house sometimes." And I'm thinking, oh, my. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. And then I'm going to let you read between the lines on this one. I don't think there's any. I truly believe there's no landlord on the planet that wants problems. They want someone to come in, be respectful. Don't destroy the building. Don't cause problems. Pay your rent, and when your lease is up, move on. I had this one girl call, and again, really, really nice. And I want to say that, really nice. Some people are a little bit harsh. Some are very truculent, forward, aggressive. Other people are very passive. You can barely get them to speak. This girl was nice, really nice person. And I said, okay, well, the rent is, let's just, again, use an arbitrary number of $700 a month for a private room. And she could do the first and last month's rent. So I said, can you come up with $1,400? She says, no, I have no money. And I said, well, then how are you going to pay your rent? So I'm just going to let you read between the lines in this one. And she said, I'll do anything. Anything you want. Anything. And I said, I can't do that. And she said, and she said to me, I want to be clear. I'll do anything you want, anything you ask. So if you're somewhat receptive to reading between the lines, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I said to her, I just said to her politely, I wish I could help you, but I'm just looking for first and last month's rent. So, there's this sort of thing has happened on 2 occasions that I'll do anything. You read between the lines. I had 2 girls move in, and like we agreed, and on the prices and the room and the costs and everything. Really nice people, and I say really nice because some are, and some are just nice people. These are really nice people. I like them a lot. And then when they moved in, they refused to pay their utilities. And they pay their rent, but the utilities were X amount included in the rent. And so we had discussed that, and they said, well, we can't pay the utilities. And I said, well, that was an agreed upon component. And so, I sit back and think, well, what's going on? Well, why? Why the misunderstanding? I mean, it's not misunderstanding on my part. They said, well, we just can't pay it. Anyway, they're not there. I had 2 other girls move in. So 11 o'clock at night, they have a meat cleaver, and they're sitting on the kitchen floor pounding frozen chicken, making a huge noise. I mean, there's people in the basement sleeping. And I asked, what are you doing? Well, the chicken's frozen, and we're trying to cut it off into parts. I said, it's 11 o'clock at night. And I said, you're making a huge noise, no consideration for the other people in the house. I said, worst case scenario, could you not do that outside if you have to do it now? If you get it, I don't. Anyway, I don't understand. It's crazy. Told you about the mom coming in, doing belly flops on the bed and all this sort of thing. And I told you about that one. And I've had a number of requests to rent for 1 or 2 months. Well, I stayed in my post My preference is for 8 months or longer, and I do say nothing less than 4 months. Well, people ask for 1 or 2 months. I told you about that one. You'd be surprised how often I get cursed out, and I have to really bite my tongue not to say anything, but I don't. I just say okay, thanks, and just hang up. What can I do? I don't want to make it worse. What was? Oh yeah, I had another young lady from overseas move in, and I'm not a student in psychology, but she was so nervous, she made me nervous. Really, as opposed to really, she's a really nice person, but so nervous. And she was like that from day one, even before she moved in. I said to her, "Are you okay? Like, have you got an anxiety disorder?" I don't want to be rude, but she said, "Oh no, I'm always kind of nervous." But it was crazy. The other people in the house wouldn't go near her. When she did her cooking, everybody vacated. Nobody wanted to be around. She made everybody nervous, and I don't understand that. Don't understand it. Makes no sense. I don't know what has happened to her in the past. I don't know if someone's been mean to her or something, but she's great, clean, nice, respectful, but so nervous. Ooh, crazy. What else have I got? Okay, I told you about the father wanting to send $100,000. This is, I can't give you percentages, but let's say 50% of the time I speak to students, they say, and they sound great. They say, okay, if there's one, never more than 4, but sometimes I get students calling and they're representing 3 or 2, and they set up an appointment to come and visit and look at things. They never show up. Never a phone call, never show up. I say I'm waiting, putting my schedule on hold so that I can be there to show them the house and so forth, and they never show up. No calls, no nothing. And then sometimes they call back a few days later. They don't have any recollection that they called, and they don't recall saying they were going to come. And when I say to them, I have your phone number here, and I have notes. I make notes when people call. And I say, I have notes here. You're supposed to show up on Saturday at 2 o'clock. What happened? The air goes, just silence. They don't know what to say. I don't understand that either. Oh yes, another one's pretty common, and I guess this is a desperation thing. Students call, and I say, well, which room are you interested in? And they say, well, which house is it? And I say, pardon me? Well, I applied to about 10 different places. I have no idea what your place is or anything. You get it. They've got a clue. They're just mass soliciting, and I'm expected to go over everything all over again and bring their focus to my location. I don't do it. I don't care. If they don't care, I don't care. I just let them. I say, well, I say politely. I'm never rude. I never use profanity. I never use 4-letter words. Never. But I just say to them, well, when you get yourself organized, call back, and we can speak to what's available. And they say, okay, that's fine, good. I never hear from them again. Let me have a look. Oh yes, it's, I don't know what to call this or how to categorize it, but I have students come to the house. We talk. They're really nice people. They don't have pets, no smoke, no drugs, none of that stuff. So they consent to come for a meeting, and they do. They actually show up, which is statistically abnormal, but they show up. Nice people. I had this one girl. She was third or fourth year computer science at Trent, and this is not any reflection on Trent. Maybe I shouldn't have said Trent, but anyway, a really nice computer science person in third or fourth year, and she was enamored at the internet and the computer systems we had available at the house. And she said, I want this room, I want it. And she said, I'm here. This is my room. You hold it for a day, and I'll be back, and I'll give you the first last month's rent. Well, I never hear from them again. Never hear from them again. I have this other policy which I feel is fair. It's something like buyer beware, something like that. It's not exactly clear, but I say to students, okay, let's have a phone chat. That's when we first text each other. So then we have a phone chat, and if that goes well, I say, okay, come to the house, and we can meet, and you can see things, and we can discuss what's going on. So I have students come to the house. They say, I like it here. I want to move in. I want to pay you now. And I said, nope. They look at me like I'm refusing their money, which I am. So I say to them, look, you're looking at other places, yes. Well, I don't want you to have any sort of buyer's remorse or anything like that. So look at a few other places and take a bit of time. I said, I've let you video anything, take pictures. I said, nothing being hidden. So take your time, think about things, because, once you sign a lease, you're kind of committed. So I said, take your time. If you decide you want to move in, call back in 48 hours, and I'll have a small initial lease ready to go, and you bring in the first last month's rent. So they say, okay, that's good. They always ask, why don't you want to take my money now? And I say, I just want you to, think about things. Don't rush. Take your time. I'm not here to hurt anybody, which I'm not. I don't want to hurt anybody. In any case, they never come back. I had this one girl, international student, come to the house, and we spoke on the phone. She was crying. So she said, can I come and talk to you at your house? And she had seen the rooms online. And I said, of course. So she came, and we sat in the living room. She was crying. And she said, I got off the plane at Toronto International, and I committed to $1,000 a month room in Peterborough. Never saw it. I sent my money to the landlord. He wanted more than the first and last month's rent down payment, and I had to sign a lease right away. They said I never saw the room. Well, when I got there, it was supposed to be a furnished room. It was an empty room. There were bugs in it. It was dirty. There was no internet, no Wi-Fi, and she said I wanted out of the lease. The landlord said, no way. You signed a lease. You put down 3 or 4 months rent, and the only way you're getting out of the lease is you find somebody to take over your lease. And he apparently he told her that if she absconded or jumped out of the room, he would find her. Apparently he had all her documentation, copy of it. He said, I'll sue you. So she sat in my room. I want to move in with you. And she met the other girls in the house. She was the same nationality. She said, I want to move in with you. And I said, you're a nice person. I have no issues with you moving in, but how are you going to deal with this other situation? She said, I don't know. She was crying. And I guess what I'm saying is I do my best to avoid that. That's why I try to give, even if when they come to look at things, they say, yeah, I want the room. I've got my first last month payment. I say, go away. Think about it over 48 hours. Give it some thought. Have a coffee, have a donut or something. And if you want to lease after one day, come on back and we'll get things set up. It's tough. And I still think everyone has a good heart. I'm old. I don't believe anyone is out to hurt anybody. I really don't. I try to look for the good in everyone. I try. But I guess sometimes there's a landlord out there, maybe he or she has been burned. I don't know. I don't know. But in any case, I couldn't help the young lady. Couldn't do anything. Let's see if I look at my notes. I've had a couple of inquiries from students who can only pay the first month's rent. And I get it. I really do. I get it. Everything's really, really expensive. And as I did a podcast, the first or second one I did, international students are paying approximately 500% more than a domestic student for the same courses. So let's just be hypothetical. A course that costs $2,000 for a domestic student is costing $10,000 for an international student. I get it. It's expensive. But from my perspective, utilities are expensive. I'm not going to sit there and turn the heat down to 10 degrees and to save a buck to cause my students or the students that are renting distress. I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. I'm not cold-hearted. I mean, I want to help people at my point in life. I mean, how many years have I got left? I'm approaching 80. What have I got? I could drop this afternoon. I'm not gonna do that to anybody to save a buck. But my point being is utilities are expensive. Water, you get hit with water twice. Fresh water coming in, affluent coming, going out, including your septic and dirty water or brown water, whatever. And electricity is a fortune. And in Ontario Hydro has this usage tier thing, which I think is insane, but that's not why I'm making this podcast today. My point being is my students, my renters, they don't abide by the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. rule. When they want to do a laundry, they do a laundry. And when the heat turned up, they turn the heat up. What can I do? I can't be mean. But my point being is that utilities are expensive. And if people are doing laundries and so forth, between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., then there's extra costs involved. So it's tough. And I get it. Landlords are not, most landlords, I'm sure there's some like me, landlords like me, they have some compassion and they're not out to gouge or hurt anyone, but still have to cover the expenses, the basics. And I get it that some landlords are out to make a profit. They don't care, which is fine. They're allowed to do that. But it's tough. And when a student comes in and says states they can't pay the first and last month's rent, well, that brings up the issue of, are they in such a tight, constricted budget that they're not going to be able to pay the next month's rent, even if we went on a month-to-month? That's a tough one. And I haven't been able to come to grips with that one so far. So my renters, or if you wish, my students or my friends are in the house, they pay first and last. It just seems to be the right way. Let me look through some more pages. I get a lot of inquiries, and I'm going to drop the statistics part because I don't know. I get a lot of inquiries from people, and they don't want to talk on the phone. Well, I'm not a good texter. My thumbs and fingers are kind of fat and chubby, and when I hit one key on the iPhone, it ends up hitting 2 or 3. In other words, I'm trying to say my text messages take a lot of time, and I don't do a good job. If you hit one key wrong, the predictive typing feature makes a mess of things. So I do my best to move the conversation or the interaction between texting and a brief cell conversation. You'd be surprised the number of students that won't move beyond that. They will not move beyond the texting. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why. It makes no sense to me. But it if you ask them and say, okay, well, we've texted a bit, could we move to a brief conversation? Everything goes dead. They won't converse. They won't give their cell number out. They just won't do it. So I don't understand that one. I had another student come in, very nice, spoke to a couple of the other students that have been here for quite some time, and she told them, the students that are here, said, there are certain rules about these are shared washrooms, shared kitchens, which changes the whole scenario as opposed to the Landlord-Tenant Act, and that no one is going to, if a student or a renter is using the washroom facilities and using the kitchen facilities, they've got to clean up after themselves. And I've had students come in and say, well, I don't like rules. Okay, I guess. and so I say to them, who is going to clean, after the washrooms are used, who's going to, clean the toilets and sinks and showers and tubs, and who's going to clean up after you have done your cooking in the kitchen? Well, some of the students say, oh, I don't know, but I'm not doing it. I don't understand that one. I don't understand that one. I don't know what they expect. Am I supposed to go and clean up after them? I guess that's what they think is going to happen. I had another girl come in, and this is not indicative of international students. It's just indicative of a single international student. She said, "Well, your house is kind of dumpy, and it's not very nice." And I say to her, "Okay, well, I'm sorry." And she said, I come from a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar family, and I'm expecting something, like a very palatial, castle-like place. And I said, well, I guess I can't help you then. I said, if you're looking for something like that, then possibly, a bit of sarcasm. I said, maybe you should go and buy your own house, or buy a condominium or something. And she said, and then she responded, well, I can't afford that, but your place is kind of dumpy. Well, I guess candor's a good thing, but I kind of felt a little bit insulted. Anyway, she's not at the house. Okay. See, I have a lot of notes because I'll never remember them all. And this is only part of them, by the way. There's probably 2 to 3 calls every single week for the last 24 months. So that works out to about 104 calls. 52, 104 times 52 weeks, 104 weeks in 2 years times 2 would be 208 calls possibly in the last 24 months. In any case, I just made quick note of a few. I get people calling who want private rooms, which is fine, and private kitchen, private washroom. Well, I make it really clear, if they read the post advertisement, that these are shared facilities. And I say, well, I can't help you with the private washroom, private kitchen. Why not? You have private rooms. In any case, it's really interesting. Let me have. I've had students. And this is. I won't say whether domestic or international, but I've had students come in and I say, well, you got to clean up, share the responsibilities of cleaning up the washrooms and the kitchens. Well, and they respond, well, I don't do that at home. And I said, well, who does it? Oh, we have maids to do that. Okay. So then my response is, okay, well, if you wish, I will will hire either a cleaning service to come in. They can come in once a week or once every day, and you can pay for the maid service or the cleanup service. Well, I'm not doing that. And so my response is, well, who do you expect is going to clean up after you? And then I get a bit of a silence, and sometimes they say, you? That makes me laugh a little. That's not going to work. What else did I make a note of? I told you about the students coming in with truckloads and truckloads of furniture, even though the rooms are all furnished, and that no one reads the posts. And I often say to people when they're calling, again, it's okay, so it's a bit of sarcasm. I always say, did you read the entire post at the beginning to the end? Oh, yes, absolutely. They never do. Never. I think this borders on hoarding, even though maybe it may be a lesser form of hoarding. I ask how much, again, my bad word is stuff. I should say, how many things do you have? And they say, well, a lot. And you pressure or push the point of how much is a lot. It'd be enough to fill a house. I don't know if that's hoarding, but they're students. They don't need a whole house full of furniture. And why would they be calling me, who has furnished rooms? Don't understand it. I told you about the boyfriends thing. I have students calling that want to rent, let's say now, being today's the 30th of April. I get students calling now, or some students calling January, February. They're really proactive, looking to rent a room for September the 1st, which is sort of generally start of a new academic year. In any case, I say, we speak on the phone, and I say, okay, well, I can accommodate that, but I will require first and last month's rent. And they say, why? I'm not moving until September. So, again, I have to be polite. I can't be rude, but I say to them, well, a lot of things could happen between February and September. I say maybe you will decide not to go to college, university, or maybe you'll win the lottery and decide not to come, or maybe something more of a catastrophic nature will happen, or maybe you'll want to move in with a friend. They don't understand why I would ask for first and last month's rent 6 or 8 months prior to September 1st. Then they get all upset. Anyway, that's another example. Oh yeah. And then I've had students move in, and I always ask when they move in, do you know how to cook? And of course, the answer consistently always is, of course I know how to cook. I say, okay, great. I have the smoke alarm going off. The kitchen is filled with smoke. There's no flames, but I mean, what do they say? Where there's smoke, there's fire. They don't get it. I get students that will start cooking something, then they walk away and go and have a shower. There is really, really something missing, and I live there, so it's controllable, but it's difficult. So I just to go a little bit further, I look at their pots and pans. They're so filled with I don't think crud is the right term, but they're so left over with prior cooking material. They didn't clean it right, and it becomes baked on and caked on that it creates smoke. They don't understand. And then I say, okay, well, here's a brand new pot or a pan. Use this, and there's no smoke, no problems. They don't understand that if they cook with old or maybe uncleaned cookware, that it tends to create smoke. They don't get it. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. What else have I got here? I've only got a few more pages. Calling from the GTA. No one reads. Okay, I told you about that one. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I can't remember all of them. There's so many. I told you about the lawyer thing. That happens somewhat, and I understand when it comes to like a rental contract, call it a lease, whatever. I don't sit here with 10 lawyers behind me. I don't need to. My dad used to say, your word is your bond. But still, because people are people, you have to create a small document with, the basic, your rent and what's expected and some basic house rules. And I get a number of parents that they don't like the contract or they don't want a rental contract. And so my counter is, please go to your family lawyer and have a rental contract or a lease drawn up. I'll look at it, and if it seems reasonable, I'll sign it. I don't have a problem with that. And they say, okay, well, who's going to pay? And I said, well, you're going to pay. If you don't like my little lease contract thing, then you're going to pay for your own lawyer. Oh, they don't like that. That's just outrageous. In any case, good legal path, got it. Can't deal with this. What else I want to share with you? I get, again, I don't think this, I'm coming to an end. I don't think this is astronomically crazy, but some students, being students, they leave everything the last minute. I've had 4 or 5 calls today, being the 30th, looking to rent rooms tomorrow. And it's a little too fast. And their bulk hitting on various landlords to get something quick. But last minute rental request, that is pretty standard, very much standard. They don't understand shared. Shared makes no sense. And then when I direct them to the housing department at the college or university to check so they understand the difference between a shared washroom and or kitchen and something different, they don't understand. And when they go to the housing department for clarity, I don't know. I don't know whether they don't go to the housing department for clarity, but they always, their answer is, okay, well, I get it, which they don't. They don't understand. She was in teachers. Lying. I've got more pages, but I'm going to sort of come to an end on this. Dishonesty or lying or misrepresenting the facts. It's really standard. I had one girl in the last month. I suppose I should drop the girl guy. One person applied last month. It said they were, what's the word was used? A substitute teacher, 18 years old. Well, I don't know any substitute teacher that is 18 years old or would be accepted as a substitute teacher as 18 years old. It may be possible. I'm not going to sit down and do a doctoral dissertation on who can be what as far as a teacher, but my understanding is to be a teacher, you need a minimum of a 4-year honors degree or 4-year degree. You need teachers college. You have to go through vulnerable background checks with the police and a standard police background check. And I believe teachers college is 2 years. I could be wrong, maybe 1 year. And then I also understand that potentially you have to teach under the supervision of a teacher for a period of time. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think most teaching assistants or substitute teachers will be 18 years old. I guess it's possible, I guess. But in any case, I went on, whether I should have or should not have, I went on to push the challenge a little bit. I said, you must be highly intelligent. And she said, I am. And I said, well, because you probably need a 4-year degree. Oh, no. She said, I don't have any degrees. I just had grade 12. I'm teaching at a Catholic's, or I'm associate teacher or assistant teacher at a Catholic school. And I said, did you go all through the vulnerability background checks? No. So I said, are you a teaching assistant, or what are you? Well, she kind of said she was a cleaner. And I said, oh. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, and it's okay. It's human nature, I guess. Everybody wants to be the king or the queen or the president. I get it. I do understand. I'm old. But just be honest. I mean, I think it's unreasonable that you're going to be a teacher at 18 years old. I really do. And so I kind of think, if you're lying now, what's the next lie going to be? Are you going to be able to pay your rent, or is this all fabricated nonsense? It's tough. It's not tough in a terrible way. It's just, I think as a landlord, you don't want problems. And I don't know anybody who rents a room that wants a problem. I don't. I believe everybody rents a room to a little bit of supplemental income, combined with helping a student. But the lying, kind of puts things off on a different foot. You have to ask how much lying is there, and where will it go next. But it's a little tiny bit difficult. I did speak about the father wanting to send $100,000 US, but I do get a number of inquiries about mums and dads and students wanting to send first and last month's rent without ever seeing the room, without meeting me. I can't do that. I can't. I don't know who potentially is sending the money. I don't know if I would like them. I don't know if they would like me. I don't know if they're up to something illegal. I don't know. But it says on all the sites, don't send. It says beware, don't send money. And I don't want money from anybody until I've met them and we've had a conversation and so forth and so forth. I get it all the time. Well, give me your bank account number or your bank transit fee, and I'll send you money and all sort of thing. This is kind of standard. I know kind is a bad word, but it happens a lot. And even though these rental websites say, don't send money and all this sort of thing, people always want to send money. It's goofy. This one is a little bit off topic, a little bit, but you should know me now. I'm trying to follow the footprints of Hemingway, talk and talk and talk. And if I get off topic, then I get off topic. Who cares? It's my podcast. But I'm going to give you, we're coming to an end. Let me have a look here and see what else I've got before I go off topic. I talked about the cleanliness thing. I've spoken briefly about the age consideration. I'm not against anybody of age. I'm old. Only the Lord knows how much longer I'm going to be here. But I have made a choice that I'm looking to rent to students, younger people, people who have just graduated, which if after a 4-year degree potentially would be around 22, 23, who are just starting their first job, their first careers. I'm looking for a group that's a little bit younger. That's my choice. You get and I have had this from experience, if you have a younger crowd renting and an older person comes in, the older people sometimes want to take over. They want to be the bosses. They want to tell everyone to do. The first thing you know, you've got discontent in the house because of inequality. So anyway, I make the choice to be a little bit discretionary, and the amount of people I get inquiring that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, some in their 70s and 80s, it just tells me that people don't read. They don't read my post, which is, it's not alarming, it's just interesting. So I think I've mentioned a lot of things. I'm going to mention a couple of things kind of as a closing note off topic. But I want to come to a conclusion on this rental thing. And I've said it repeatedly. I believe most landlords are good people, and that there's no malice intended. I believe most students inquiring are the same. They need a place to stay. They have a budget. They're looking for the best they can get within their budget. I believe that. I also believe it's good procedure for everyone to ask a lot of questions, and I don't think anyone should rent a room unless they've met the landlord and seen the home and are comfortable with the living conditions. I think that goes both ways, renters and landlords. And my procedure is to communicate very briefly with text and then move to a cell conversation. And if that goes well, move to them coming to the house. And if that goes too well, give them 48 hours time to think about things. And if they want to move from that point forward, I've done all I can to give them all sorts of time and leeway, no pressure. And I think everyone should be comfortable. At least that's the goal. So that's the end of that part. But I want to tell you a couple of stories. And now I cannot mention where. I can't mention institutions or anything. But I'm going to give you a couple of funny little stories. I have spoken to a number of students, and they're in a 18-month and or 24-month program, and one was in computer science. That comes to mind directly. One was in pharmacy, and one was in nursing. Well, let's talk about the computer science one. Me being me and following the Hemingway thought, talking too much, I try to get as much from each conversation as I can in terms of knowledge of the person calling. So I asked this person, they had graduated with a 2-year accreditation in computer science. And so I asked, would they have any luck finding a career? And they said, no, but I think my resume, again, using their language, is no good. And I said, well, why would you say that? Well, it was communicated that they're not getting any job interviews, so the resume must be at fault. And I said, well, why would you send out, this is me, why would you send out thousands of resumes that are not being productive, and that you feel that the resume you're sending out is not good enough? And they say, oh, well, we were told just to send out a blast, like send out hundreds of resumes and someone will bite. Someone will call us for an interview. So me being me, following Hemingway, I said, well, what's the difference between a server and a terminal? And the response was, I don't know, I never heard of that. And I said, well, what's the difference between Wi-Fi and Ethernet? Don't know. I know what Wi-Fi is, but I don't know what Ethernet is. And I said, why can't you answer these, really, really basic questions? And I was told, well, you make me nervous. And I said, okay, I appreciate that. And I said, well, what are you going to do if you go for an interview with a company as potentially their their computer person or their network administrator or whatever, and there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people sitting at a table asking you questions. What are you going to do then? And I was told, well, I'm going to have to study more. And I said, well, you just told me you just graduated 4 weeks ago. And I was told, yes. Well, I said, I replied that your brain should be overflowing with computer knowledge. You shouldn't need to have to study. And then the person hung up. Well, they probably should have. None of my business. But does that make any sense? I had another person, I got to keep this gender neutral. Another person said they were in a 2-year pharmacy program, and that when they graduated, they were going to open up a pharmacy, their own pharmacy. And I, again, following Hemingway's philosophy of many, many words to describe something, I asked, do you not need more education than just 2 years? Oh no, we were told when we graduate we can open up our own pharmacy. I said, oh, well, I guess my friend in Toronto, who is a retired pharmacist, who had a 4-year degree in something in 2 years of pharmacy, and he had to write a pharmacy exam and on and on and on. I guess he was in error. And I was told, I don't know anything about that. I was just told I'm opening up my own pharmacy after 2 years. Well, again, I'm not doing a doctoral dissertation or a research project on what's the requirements for a pharmacy license or a pharmaceutical license, but I think it might be more than 2 years, maybe. And maybe I'm wrong. I had another person, there's just 2 or 3 that come to mind, and they're not on the topic of renting. It's more just a conversation piece to close. And this person was in the nursing program and finishing up a 2-year nursing program. And I asked, well, I guess you're gonna continue on to university or something to get your RN. And I was told, well, when I graduate, I'll be an RN. Oh, so you'll be a registered nurse after 2 years of study? Yep, that's what I've been told. So I said, there's no nursing assistant or nothing like that? Nope, I'll be an RN. And I said, wow, must be a very intensive fast track program, because I said, I have a couple of retired, like I'm old, why wouldn't, my friends are retired or almost retired, said, I have a couple of retired RNs, and they had to go through a lot more academic study and examinations and so forth. And I was told, well, I don't know, but I'll be an RN, and I want to be a nurse practitioner within a couple of years. So if any of you are out there, I think there's only 5 people who watch this stupid broadcast. By the way, I'm the stupid broadcaster. But in any case, I think there's only 4 or 5 people who watch. Thank you for that. But if you get a chuckle out of any of this, God bless you. Because I sit back at night and reflect on some of these things. And I have more pages, but I think that's enough for now. But I keep records of the conversations, brief, succinct records, and I make little notes. And it's interesting. How's that? What I can tell you this, again, as a secondary close, is I have 3 renters now who are, if there was a word beyond exemplary or excellent or perfection, I would use that word. They're 3 international students. They all have their master's degrees. They're intelligent as heck. They're beautiful people. I'm not talking about physical, even though they are very nice. I'm talking about their mental attitude. They would be a real asset to any Canadian company. They're wonderful people, well educated. They're working on additional supplemental degrees. They're good people. And They've been, me being old, they've been helpful. They've helped me when I ask for a little bit of support. Sometimes they're a little bit late on the rent. Who cares? We've been together now for 16 months, and they're not locked in. They can come and go. They can do anything they want. If they weren't happy here, I'm assuming they would leave. So things can't be too terrible, but they're great. So renting can be really positive. And I spoke to my accountant, and as highly, I mean, my accountants they're not just CPAs, they're CAs, CGAs, they've got more supplemental licenses than you can count in a deck of cards. They're professionals in their field. And I'm sometimes given a little bit of a blast of the devil for not being stricter on my rental policy. Like, I supply toilet paper, paper towels, tissues at no cost for the students. I mean, how can I not? What can I say to them? You can't use the washroom because you're not paying for that roll of toilet paper? I can't do that. I mean, it's just not, it's not reasonable. And yeah, my accountants have given me a little bit of a blast for not being more focused on the word PROFIT, profit. I can't do it. These are really nice people, and I thank God, or fate, or whatever, that we all met. They're good people. One of the students just left about a month ago, found a great career, because I think there's a difference between a career and a job. I found a great career position down in Toronto, and she's working on her career goal, which is why she came here to get her master's. She's working in the field she wanted, and the two other girls that are still here, they're doing their very best to find something. And one girl had a really great opportunity in the last week, but it was only for 2 or 3 months with a great company. I mean, a phenomenal company. But 2 or 3 months it wasn't enough. And it wasn't potentially going to lead to something full-time. It was something for the summer, which is a shame. It was a great company, great. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying, coming to a long-winded Hemingway type of close, is that renting can be really a positive experience. The students I've had at the house, they're the best of the best. They'll be a part of my soul until the day I die, maybe after, even if there is more. They're really good people. And while they're in their middle 20s and I'm coming up to 80, and when I say I love them, you know what I mean. I respect them greatly, and I would do anything within my financial ability to help them. I was really lucky having the 3 of them. And I hope soon that the remaining 2 will find their career paths, and probably not here in Peterborough. Probably they'll have to head off to some major city, Ottawa, Toronto, the GTA, whatever, the out west, who knows. But they probably won't find a career path here in Peterborough. So I'm going to lose them. It's going to kill me, because they're really special people. So what's the close? Renting's fun. It keeps you mentally and physically engaged, as opposed to living alone in a house full of ghosts and memories. It keeps you active. And is it always 100% profit? No way, it isn't. It isn't. And from an accounting perspective, it may not even be the best use of funds. But when it keeps you mentally and physically active, and it keeps you going, you wake up, you have something to do and something to look forward to, it's okay. It's okay. And if, like I say, I don't think there's hardly anybody who watches this podcast because they're pretty crummy. That's not very good English, is it? They're not very good. I'm trying to improve. The one I did last week, as one of my 5 or 6 viewers said, it needs commentary, and of course it did. But I couldn't do it last week. I had too much on the go. But I'm learning. I'm trying to do better each time. A lot of it is these podcasts. A lot of it is coming to grips with the technology. There's all sorts of software and hardware that one needs. My computers are pretty crummy. That's bad English. They're not sufficient for doing all of these video cuts and copying and pasting and inserts. They're not sufficient, and it really takes a lot of time. It take me 4 hours to do a combining of various tracks of video. It takes hours, and I need a new computer. And I'm of course at this stage I'm not funded or anything else, so this is just an act to kind of learn the ropes. But I try to do better each week. Last week was probably a negative. It was 8K video. The video was good, but it was just an 8K video camera without a gimbal, so it was kind of bumpy, made from an e-bike. I guess I need a GoPro. I think the GoPro 13 maybe has it's not a gimbal, but has a built-in stabilizer. I probably need to upgrade to that if I'm going to do any live podcasts. But I try to do better. But last week was probably a step backwards. The only thing, it was an experience doing a live video upgrade. So I guess that's about it. Renting's fun. You just have to be careful. You get the wrong people in, first thing you're going to have are good police officers at the door, and we don't need that. Our police have more. They're needed for more urgent things than having a squabble between a landlord and a tenant. I know it happens. I know it's part of the responsibility, but I don't want the police at the door. I don't want to waste their time, because ultimately it doesn't benefit anyone. It just makes things uncomfortable. So, renting, you have to be careful. Better to have one renter than have 5 or 6 renters with problems. And I don't think my accountants, my friends, they're accountants, but they're my friends. And I don't think they watch these things. I think they're too busy. But if any of them do watch, they are my friends. They're my friends. They're professional, but they're also my friends. They probably may say that renting is not the best use of funds. But it has its times. It's fun. And just let you know, nothing inappropriate happens. There's absolute 100% respect. When you live with people for 15 and 16 months, I mean, no one's locked in. Anyone can leave at a moment's notice. So things can't be that bad if people stay. I mean, I'm happy, and I'm assuming staying that period of time, they're relatively happy or content. And is it the best use of funds? Probably not. But it at times a little bit of fun. You get a laugh and a giggle. You share a coffee. You watch a TV show. It's okay. In any case, I think that's the end for my few viewers. Jeff, thank you, and I look forward to your criticism, positive criticism, because criticism is the only way generally I can tell what I'm screwing up. And yeah, my podcasts are pretty bad, but I made a commitment to do 52, one a week for a year. So this will be number 8. And I'm going to do the 52. Even if I have to put a couple of short ones out because of time demands, I'm going to do 52. And I promise I'll try to do better in each one. I'll try. I think there'll be a big improvement when I get a new computer. because I'll be able to do things faster. But for now, I have to struggle and work with the equipment I have. It's a learning process. In any case, thank you for the few people who do watch, and for, I think I can say this first name, Nisha Rajni Manya, and now a new member of our home that just moved in. I hope things work out. We will do the best to keep things moving forward and positive. And Nisha, keep going. You're doing great. Rajni Manya, keep doing it. And as I've said to you, I don't think it's quantity of resumes you put out. I think it's the quality. I know people want to get employed in a career, not a job, a career. And I know there's some pressure from home, which is being an international student is halfway around the world. I get it. But I think it's better to send out 3 or 4 or 5 quality focused resumes than to send out 100 a day with no sense of direction. Well, that's my perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is just send out hundreds and 1% will respond. In other words, 1 out of 100. I don't know. But anyway, luck will follow you. Fate will intervene, and fate will make it happen at the appropriate time. Being old, I do believe in fate. I believe things happen as they must. I'm sure Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and others who are billionaires and trillionaires, there's things they want and they can't have. That they just can't have it, even though they've got the money to buy countries. And I believe in that. I believe in life there's things that we all want, and sometimes you can throw everything at it, you just can't have it. It's not meant to be. I call that fate. A few years ago, I lost my very best friend. And if I could have, I'd have given my life for him, because he was a good person. He helped a lot of people, and he didn't ask for compensation. He was in a position that he helped a lot of people, and he really, really did. And he passed, and he passed at an early age. And my thought is, as Doris Day, which probably nobody knows, Doris Day would say, que sera, sera. What will be, will be. And I don't know if that's a reflection on fate, but I believe in it. I believe what will happen, will happen. I mean, yeah, don't go out of your way to do stupid things and stay positive and focused. But I do believe that a career for Rajni and Manya will come along. And I believe it'll happen. Just got to stay focused. Don't get too stressed out. And be patient. Anyway, that's it. Thanks, Jeff, for watching. Nobody else watches. I promise to do better each one. So that's it. Take care, everybody. Another Old Man Podcast number 8. See ya.